Oh, that's right.
I, Denise Park, do hereby give notice that a meeting of the Blackburn with Darwen Borough Council Forum will be held via remote meeting on Thursday, the 16th of July, 2020 at 6 p.m.
Thank you, Denise. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this meeting tonight. And I also want to welcome any members of the public that are watching this council forum today. This meeting is being held virtually in accordance with Part 2 of the Local Authorities and Police and Crime Panels, Regulations 2020, and the Council's Supplementary Council Procedure Rules. In summary, the regulations were brought in as a response to the coronavirus epidemic. They removed the requirement for members to be physically present in the room. They allow us to debate, participate, and vote through remote video conferencing while observing the social distancing measures needed to restrict the spread of the virus. Can I ask all members and officers to observe the following principles? Please mute your microphone and turn off your video at all times unless I have called upon you to speak. Remember to mute your microphone and turn off your video again when you have finished. Indicate at the start of the meeting if you wish to speak through the MS Teams chat channel. If you wish to speak again, I will call members to speak at my discretion and according to the demands of the agenda. In terms of voting, for a small meeting, I will ask each councillor in turn. In terms of voting for a large meeting, the votes will be determined by consensus. If there is no consensus, voting will be carried out by a roll call. Thank you. Can I ask Denise to run through the process of the meeting covering the debate?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this meeting will operate as we usually do, where I will introduce each item. The Mayor will invite the report owners to introduce. We'll invite questions as usual. And as the Mayor's just indicated or just mentioned to you, if councillors do wish to speak on an item, they can indicate using MS Teams chat function. And I will advise the Mayor which councillors have indicated they wish to speak. We've already gone through the guidance on keeping your cameras and audio off unless you have been invited to speak. At the end of all the speakers, or when the Mayor determines there has been sufficient debate, the report author will have the right to reply to any questions or statements that have been made. Just to clarify, in terms of voting, given the nature of remote meetings, at the end of the debate on each item, the Mayor will ask if there are any councillors who object to the report or the recommendations. So we do not need you to confirm that you support the recommendations, but if you do have any objections, you should turn on your microphone, state your name, and that you do not support or that you object to the report. If nobody indicates in that way, the Mayor will declare the report approved and we will move on to the next item.
Thank you.
If we need to go to a name vote, we will indicate that at the time that we need to do so, but we do not normally need to progress to individual named votes. So thank you, that's the procedures for the meeting. Mr. Mayor, the first item of business for this evening is to receive apologies for absence.
Is there any apologies?
Apologies received from Councillor John Slater and Maureen Bateson.
Neil's just arrived, but he needs to log in, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie.
Mr. Mayor, the next item of business for this evening is for your chaplain to say prayers, which we have now.
I think there's a hiccup with the volume.
Mr.
Yeah.
Mayor, it's frozen.
We'll just sort that out. If you just bear with us for 1 minute, we'll get the prayers sorted.
Thank you, Denise.
Why does that? My mouse keep moving when I don't touch anything. You what, Paul?
Mr. Mayor, I do apologise. I think we're having some technical difficulties with the sound.
Okay, no worries.
I will. We will just check. It may be that.
If it's not working, can we move on to the next item or?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, again, apologies that we've been unable to hear your chaplain's prayers this evening, but we will move on to the next item of business, which is to receive and confirm the minutes of the annual council meeting, which we held on the 4th of June 2020.
The minutes moved.
I move those minutes, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. The seconded.
Seconded, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Approved.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The next item of business is to request any declarations of interest. They should have been submitted to Democratic Services in advance, but if any members do need to declare an interest, they can do so now. Okay, the next item of business, Mr. Mayor, is to receive your communications.
Thank you, Denise. In these difficult times, I've not been able to do any live events, but I've done my best. I've done a few events online, on Zoom. I've supported the Refugee Week, where we had an afternoon tea, where everybody was sat at home having tea and listening to volunteers, all the wonderful work they're doing. So it was good to see all the volunteers helping out with the charity. And also, it was important to remember our heroes in the armed forces. So I did a video to celebrate the Armed Forces Day. And again, 72nd birthday for the NHS. I did a video for them and to ask everyone to come out and clap for our heroes. And also on the hospice, I've not been able to do any events or anything for the charity, but they are doing a wonderful job and they will increase the bed capacity in these difficult times. And I hope, sooner rather than later that things get better, but it doesn't seem like it's going to be very soon. And also the difficulty we're having at the moment is we can't close the account of the previous mayor. So we're not been able to set up a charity page or anything like that, but we're in the process of doing that. And after that, I've done a Srebrenica Memorial Day, where we had the victims of the massacre describing what's happened in Europe a few years back. So that was very heart touching. And that's about it really. And I'm looking forward to things to get better and get back to normal and everybody coming out and doing live events. Thank you. Thank you, Denise.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, we have received one question under Procedure Rule 12 for the Council Forum from a member of the public, and I will ask David Fairclough, Director of HR Legal and Governance, to read out that question before we get a response.
Thank you. I would like to put the following question to the Leader of the Council, Councillor Mohammed Khan. Given the experience of Leicester and the Mayor's view that a citywide lockdown was not needed, will Blackburn with Darwen Borough Council undertake to make any lockdown to be targeted to specific areas and specific venues or businesses rather than a borough-wide approach? And that question, Mr. Mayor, comes from a Mr. Martin Carey. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Can I ask the leader to respond to that, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, David. Blackburn with Darwen has a clear approach to contain the spread of the virus with an action plan and plan for escalation of control measure over time and when needed. Given a high rate of positive cases now, we are designating the borough as a COVID-19 prevention zone. Our general approach is that from 13th of July, we have agreed an intense program of targeted intervention aimed at both at risk setting and groups and the wider population. This includes community engagement and behavior compliance, program led by the community group themselves, direct communication in local print, broadcast media and social media, public protection inspection in high risk setting, and a range of other measures. Implementing 5 special local prevention measures from 14th of July for 1 month. Restricting household meeting indoor, wearing face covering, no handshake or hugs, elbow bump if you must do it, sport for small shop and more testing. If the confirmed cases per 100,000 people and the positive rate percentage of the COVID-19 test confirmed positive continues to rise to the Monday, 27th July, we will then have to consider implementing a range of local reversal to the decision national lockdown lifting measure. These will include both universal and targeted intervention aimed at specific problem and areas. So therefore, Mr. Mayor, I can confirm that we have no intention to allowing borough-wide lockdown like Leicester. If we can at all help it, it is our view such a measure for the Blackburn with Darwen would not effectively address the specific COVID-19 challenges we have at this time. If we do have to begin reversing specific lockdown measure from the end of July, these will be proportionate and targeted at the specific cause of continuous community transmission. There is no indication at the moment to suggest that a borough-wide lockdown of commercial venues and businesses would be necessary or effective to contain the spread of the virus. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Khan. Is there anybody else who wants to speak? Can we move on?
Yeah.
Yes, no,
Mr. Mayor,
probably-
no notices of motion have been submitted under Procedure Rule 12. And under Procedure Rule 10. And the next item of business is to receive a report on the Council's initial response to the COVID-19 pandemic, which the leader will speak to.
Thank you. Councillor Khan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The report highlights our initial emergency response to COVID-19, how the council services are adapted to the pandemic, and the preparation of the next phase and long-term recovery. It is detailed report, Mr. Mayor, I think 30-odd pages,
right.
which I have elected member have read, and I will just highlight some key points. Staff in all services area have worked at pace to support our residents and businesses. We were quick to set up the health hub on the 26th of March, and throughout this time have delivered over 30,000 food parcels, supported almost 3,500 volunteers, and received almost 6,500 calls. We have urgently accommodated homeless people, rough sleeper, taking a lead role on Penn and Lancashire. We met all the requirements of the National Hospital discharge, guidance, and our Home First, reablement, and hospital team worked flexibly to offer a 7-day 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. services. Many of our services have been able to move online, including library, museum, and galleries. Our refresh website has been completely redesigned to provide health and well-being information, and our fitness instructor have been doing online classes to support people to exercise at home. We have had fantastic support from our local faith partners, which was really outstanding. We introduced a webcasting for cremation services and relax our rule on regulation in cemetery to allow for video recording burial to those unable to attend the funeral, who were unable to feel part of the services. Our thoughts and prayers go to those who lost their life and their loved one. It was a very difficult time for the community. Our refuse and recycling collection have been remained in place throughout the pandemic. Our recycling center temporarily closed in March, but following the further government guidance, we were able to reopen and quickly implemented a booking system that has been very successful and well received by our residents. The government announced a grant for the businesses facilities throughout the council. In the first 12 days, we had proceeded more than 1,100 grant and have now paid over 39 million pounds to local businesses. Now we have received about 400 applications for the discretionary grant, which our staff are now processing. Mr. Mayor, in line with government guidance, I think we close both our market, try to protect the trader and customers. Our market trader responding positively, with many food traders adapting their businesses and doing home delivery instead. All of this has been profound effect on our finances. We have already had a huge cost cuts to make up the last 10 years of our austerity measure. Our reserves are very low, similar to our other local authority. We discussed this, our executive board last week reported that based on the outspend and loss of income highlighted in the report, budget gap is very, very high. We are working with the other local government body to lobby the government and highlight the urgent need for the further year financial support. We had amazing feedback from our residents who have actually thankful to our staff, and I think they're providing more mileage boost as well as highlighted the wide range of services we have continued to provide. I would like to thank all the staff across the council who have worked tirelessly over the last 100 months, 100 days, and we began to close services and get new arrangement in place of critical support. Our voluntary and community and faith sector have been fantastic, stepping up to support vulnerable people, sharing key messages and important information. There are a lot of businesses across the borough that have gone behind the call of duty recent month, and I would like to thank them for supporting us and our residents during these challenging times. Euro Garage opened their doors to host the council food hubs, Frontier Park, Cookson Clegg, Herbal Parkinson, WEC, Acros, Punjab Paper Mill, and Morrison, and many other who have played a very active role to support us and support our community. This has been a unique time and one that will never be forgotten. We are still in uncertain time, Mr. Mayor, and we will be guided by the health professional as we get to grip with the virus. You will be aware of the announcement made by the Director of Public Health earlier this week, a new local measure to help control the spread of the virus. I hope my member colleague will do everything they can to support these measures within our community. As we move forward, we will focus on our own transition economic recovery, including developing the Darwin Town Center investment plan and our work with the Lancashire Enterprise Partnership to develop our economy recovery. I would like to thank all my political colleagues who have been very supportive to our staff during this time as we have navigated our way through government guidance and introduced the new arrangement in the best interest of our residents and businesses. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move the report.
Thank you. Is that seconded? That's approved.
I'll second it, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Is
Okay.
that
So, Mr. Mayor, Councillor McGurk has indicated she would like to speak.
go ahead, Councillor McGurk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to comment on the report, just to say, I'm sure I speak on behalf of all the council, just how proud I am to represent Blackburn with Darwen Borough Council and how proud we are of the all the staff across all the different departments working at pace in a fantastical way to ensure, one, that our own members of staff are supported and cared for and home working at very quick pace, but also for all of the help that the staff and local businesses have produced in ensuring that we could produce the food hub. I think it's been an amazing time. Whilst it's been a difficult time, it's been an amazing time in actually how the council and the local communities have pulled together, and how the council and the leadership of the council have reacted and still react. And as to the Health Secretary's point recently regarding Blackburn with Darwen Borough Council, that it continues to act in the best interest of the public. So just wanted to make comment and say just how fantastic everybody has been during this pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McGurk.
Councillor Brown has indicated.
Councillor Brown, go ahead.
Councillor Brown, you need to come off mute, please.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, we can hear you
Yeah.
now, Councillor
Yes,
Brown.
Councillor Brown, go ahead.
Right. Sorry. What I want to know is, and the traders in Darwin, especially the people on Market Street, where there is still barriers up on the road to stop people parking, and yet they have removed the no parking signs in Duckworth, in Market Street. They have removed them, and they haven't removed them in Market Street. And I want to know the reason why, because the traders in Duckworth Street are going absolutely up in the wall about it. Why? Because there's nobody going down that stretch of road to shop. And I want to know the reason why they've done it for one and not for the other, please.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Any further questions?
Councillor G has indicated she would like to speak.
Councillor G, go ahead.
Thank you very much. I wanted to bring forward regarding the local grants, the local business grants. There was a little bit of mixed message between the government saying that people would automatically receive these grants, but yet the council issuing them after somebody had applied online. There was a bit of a clarity cloud for a moment or two, which it did cause anxiety for a lot of small businesses in the community. But I want to thank the staff for working tirelessly to resolute that issue and ensure that people had the finances that they really required to exist through this terrible time. I'd also like to say thank you to the community groups for their outstanding response to helping our council deliver support and enable life to exist through this pandemic. And small businesses in the borough also need to be commended for adapting to ensure vulnerable residents were provided with goods, essential goods, to keep them, you know, with food and water, milk, bread, all the basics of life, which were very crucial, and they should be commended for stepping up. But I would like to say a massive thank you to the borough staff. They've been out delivering food parcels, ensuring our vulnerable are engaged with, and it's been a huge movement, and it should be commended for the hard work that they've done. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor G. Any further question?
Councillor Riley.
Councillor Riley, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, two things really. One was just to echo the remarks of Councillor G about the response and of staff, and in particular the food hub, which was put together in premises that were donated to us by Euro Garages, and that has to be commented upon. Their generosity made everything that we then went on and did possible. And then there was an extraordinary performance really by members, in fairness, of the growth and development team who stopped doing what their normal day job and set to in putting together a sort of a process of collecting food, packaging it, delivering it, and as the leader said earlier, the number of packages were delivered were in the thousands. As it happened, I've been given a letter today from some residents who were the recipients of it, and it's a I won't embarrass them by reading it or saying who they are, but it's a very heartwarming response and about how effectively during these were two people who were shielding, but during the lockdown their lives really were made almost tolerable by the sort of presence and the weekly arrivals of the of staff from Blackburn with Darwen Borough Council. Secondly, if I could just take up the point from Councillor Brown about the pavements in Duckworth Street and Market Street. This has become an absolute saga. Initially, we closed off 3 sections of pavement on the judgment that we needed to make them safe for both people queuing and pedestrians working their way down the street. It was a judgment call that we made. We always said that we would keep on reviewing it. We removed the chevron parking, put barriers, created essentially a second footpath. And in some places it's worked very well in the sense that there's now, I think there's pavement cafes, and there may well be more pavement cafes arriving next week when the new licenses act from the government comes into force. We took a view that one particular section was not required, and we removed them, and we are continuing to review the others. You may have noticed that we've now introduced a similar scheme in Darwen Street in Blackburn to facilitate exactly the same thing. As I have said on a large number of occasions, in the end we make no apologies for trying to make people safe and for trying to encourage people to return to the town centres of both Blackburn and Darwen, people who haven't been maybe there for 3 or 4 months, whose major priority is to feel safe. We make no apologies for doing it. I'm puzzled by the persistent excitement that Councillor Brown and his colleagues are, Councillor Davis, are managing to generate on this topic. It's obvious what we're trying to do, and we will continue to review it, and in time hopefully we will be able to remove them. So hopefully that gives a little bit of clarity, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Riley. Any further question?
Councillor Corner.
Councillor Corner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think the leader mentioned it already, and I couldn't agree more on the amount of work the volunteers have done. The areas they covered within the borough, but outside the borough, towards Clitheroe, Rishton, and so much more, was really fantastic to see. There was a time when we were fasting, but that didn't stop any of the volunteers to go out. All the people out there, they got together, but also we've got to appreciate all the businesses as well who donated so much food and loads of other necessary stuff, which was really, really helpful. And I think Councillor Riley and Denise, Councillor G has already touched on, some of the points. But really, Blackburn got together at a time when it was need, and everybody pulled through together. So well done and a big congratulations to everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Corner.
There are no other councillors indicating they wish to speak, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Denise. Councillor Khan, do you want to say something?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I fully echo what Councillor G and Councillor Connor said and Phil Riley said about the outstanding performance of our staff and volunteers and faith sectors and businesses. Unbelievable. I was so impressed. The community spirit was so high that I only can salute them. And I think if I start mentioning depart by depart, I think the list is very, very long. And if I start mentioning the individual, Denise or Dominic Harrison, Saeed Usman, and many other directors who done a fantastic job pulling together. I think it's unbelievable. It's not myself. I think the number of email and letter I got from the community who got the help, and it was really fantastic. And I think people really praise our staff, the way they have done the extra mile to make sure they are going to help the people who needed our help. And I think the television company came from all the way London, and I think they spent 8 days or 7 days here, just looking at the witnesses, even seeing the people who got the sport. And they came to me and they interviewed me and they said, we are really impressed the way local authority and the way your people are gelled together as a one community, and they really shown the community spirit. So all in all, Mr. Chair, Mr. Mayor, I'm very, very pleased, and I think we should be proud of our council. We should be proud of our community as a whole, the way they have taken this issue on the board. They're still challenging ahead of time, as you know, Mr. Mayor, that we have tied up this virus coming up again. And my request to all members and all our colleagues in the council and the community that we need to get together to make sure we are going to fight this virus to get the grip on this. And I think we can only need to do a pull together to help us make sure we are going to control this virus. And I'm very confident the way this community, this council, ministries and other people shown the positive act during the last 4 months, we will be able to do it again. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Khan. Any objections? Thus carried.
No.
Can we move on to the next item, please?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, if you've agreed that report, the next item of business is to receive a report from the leader on proposals for a combined authority for Lancashire.
Right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think we have these kind of report for last 4.5 years, number of time in the council, but this is something which was agreed by all the leader of the district council and county council and 2 unity authority on 10th of June, that we will express our wishes to go for combined authority with elected mayor. And I think the government is quite clear. Devolution white paper is expected to come in item. But in the meantime, I think Simon Clark, Minister of Regional Growth and Local Government, has said that government will give the most generous devolution deal to those areas that have a mayoral combined authority. So, Mr. Mayor, I think in our Northwest, I think 65% of the Northwest population is covered by mayoral combined authority. And they also expect to see more unity council and more directly mayor coming forward in next few months or few years when the white paper will come out. A number of other areas across the country have coming forward with the proposal of a combined authority and new unity authority, and the Lancashire is getting left behind. And if we agree the devolution deal with the government, I think Lancashire could attract £500 million investment to fund, £160 billion for housing investment, and as well as funding for the local college to provide skill and training. So we have previously committed to support the Lancashire Combined Authority, and I will ask the council again to confirm this position, please. Thank you. I move the report.
Thank you, Councillor Khan. Any comments, objections to this report?
Mr. Mayor, there are no questions indicated.
Yes, that is, Mr. Mayor, can I got the telephone call this morning from Councillor John Slater. He's away on holiday, but he couldn't get into the system. And he was saying quite clearly that as I supported this combined authority and the unity authority in the past, I'm fully behind the council, and I have full support from John Slater and Conservative Group.
Thank you, Councillor
Can
Khan.
Mr. Mayor, can I just make a comment?
Yeah, go ahead.
I wish to say that as we must support this, there is an awful lot of work gone into it, and I'm afraid it's the only way forward. As you know, councils need the money, and the better way of doing it is to do it together.
Thank you, Jackie. Is this report agreed?
Agreed.
Agreed.
No,
Agreed.
Thank you.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Agreed.
yeah, you might just wish to check if there are any objections, Mr. Mayor.
Any objections?
No, move
No.
on.
No.
Move it.
Okay.
Next item.
Thank you. The next item of business is to receive an update from the Standards Committee from the Chair, Councillor Afzal.
Councillor Afzal, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before I propose the recommendations, I'd just like to place a vote of thanks and acknowledgement to our late councillor John Pearson for his contribution to these recommendations, and he's not here to second them today as he would normally. So I just want to thank him and all members of the Standards Committee as well. Just really in brief, there's three key recommendations. One is really around adopting the LGA guide. In particular, there are specifics around social media guidance for councillors. And what we've tried to do, because it's such a huge document, we've actually done a pocket-sized guide, which is far more accessible and summarises the information in brief, and then people can access the links in full should they need to. So that's the first recommendation, to adopt the pocket-sized guide. The second recommendation is really, we issued some guidance as requested by a number of councillors around references, and to try and highlight in what capacity we can give references. So again, there's a guide in the appendix that basically just looks at individual references and whether a council reference been given and what capacity it can be given in. And the third aspect of the guide relates to passports and countersigning identities on passport applications. Okay, so that's all self-explanatory. So that's the second. And the final recommendation, as you can see in the, which is it's just around the handling of cases, you know, in terms of, individual complaints that were made. We have accepted the report and we uphold the report, and I just want to point out, we have some members indicated that in dealing with issues of conduct, the standards regime should suspend members. We do not have those powers, and we've just followed what the guidance and the rules that we have to our availability, and that's all I wanted to really point out. If there are any questions, please do ask me, but it's straightforward. I just recommend those three items.
Thank you, Councillor Afzal. Is there any comments, objections on this report?
There are no councillors indicating they wish to speak on this report, Mr. Mayor.
Can I just second those, please, on behalf of Standards Committee?
Thank you, Sylvia. Any objections? No, this report is carried.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
The next item of business is to receive the reports from the leader and the exec members with portfolios, and the first report is the leader's report.
Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Khan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've moved the report, and I think I don't have to highlight much, but I think the Community Volunteer Award was usually taking place in every June. Understandably, our Community Volunteer Award has been postponed for now, and I want to put it on record. On behalf of the council, my thanks to all of the borough amazing volunteers who have been crucial to supporting us over the recent month and a year. And I think they've done a fantastic job. And also, Mr. Mayor, I think the message of the thanks to the council staff and volunteer resident business, I will repeat again, as I said in the COVID report earlier on the agenda, I thanks all the council staff, volunteer resident businesses who have supported us at this very challenging time. So my sincere thanks to everybody. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move the report.
Thank you, Councillor Khan. Is there any comments, questions on this report?
Yeah, yes, Mr. Khan, I've got a question. It's Councillor
Can you go
Mahfouz.
through, can you indicate you want to ask a question through Denise, please?
So I think that was Councillor Mahmood.
Mahfouz?
Yeah.
Councillor Mahfouz, go ahead.
Much, Councillor Khan. I mean, obviously, yeah, thanks very much to all our volunteers. I think we are missing out on the point as well. I think there were the places for worships, churches, mosques played a very crucial part in last 3-4 months, and I'd like to say we'd like to thank you very much to them. And I think I recommend that we send a letter out to them supporting us. There were many volunteers from the mosque and churches are out there providing food, providing all other information, medical facilities, picking up prescriptions, delivering it out to their houses. And I think we need to write a letter to them, thanking them to supporting us, and I'm sure they will be supporting us in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mahfouz, for your comments. Any
Councillor G has indicated.
Councillor G, go ahead.
Thank you very much. I would just like to reiterate really on the Community Volunteer Awards. It's a great shame that we can't come together at this time because there has been more community engagement and a huge amount of volunteering that's gone on during this pandemic. And what I would want to put on record is that we mustn't forget this, and we must make a date in that diary to recognise all the hard work and all the giving that people have brought forward in this time. So I just think we just really need to put a date in and put something for people to look forward to. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor G. Any further?
There are no other indications, Mr. Mayor.
Is this report seconded?
Seconded.
Seconded.
Is there no objections?
None.
Councillor Khan may wish to respond, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Khan, do you want to come back?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think Mahfouz is quite right, and I did mention in my COVID report that we had a fantastic support from our local faith community. And I thanks them, and I think he's quite right. I think they did a wonderful job for last 4 months, the way they deliver the food and other things to different part of the community. Even some of the mosques went to the mosque, went to the hospital to give the pizza and other takeaway and sweet and chocolate to nurses and etc. etc. And beside that, I think the whole community, as I mentioned, the whole community gelled together. All the faith sector, community sector, voluntary sector, local authority, private, public sector. I think the whole sector came together and they done a fantastic job. I think as far as Council G concerned, I think it's really disappointing that we couldn't celebrate the volunteer and just thanks them for their outstanding work they always do, not only this time of the year, but I think they're around the year for last 7-8 years. I think we have been doing a fantastic job with all the community, and I think they have been doing a fantastic job. They have still done a fantastic job, and I think we cannot thanks them as usual way in June when we get together, and then we give them prizes and recognize their outstanding performance. I hope things will get better, and I can assure Council G that we are, whenever the things get better, we are going to have a kind of community volunteer award here in Blackburn. So I think I can only thank them at this stage. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Khan. If there's no objections, this report has been approved.
The next report is from Councillor Jim Smith, the Exec Member for Environmental Services.
Go ahead, Jim.
Second that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move that report and take any questions. Councillor Casey, I'd like to second that.
Any questions?
Councillor McGurk.
Councillor McGurk, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to make a comment really on the household waste recycling centres. I think it's been a fantastic scheme. I've had loads of feedback from the local community, and my husband himself uses that. And I think that not only has it been a fantastic scheme, but it's actually been run in such a consistent way that the public have felt safe. It's been well organised, and just wanted to say a massive thanks, really, Jim.
Thank you, Councillor McGurk. Any further questions?
Yeah, we have a few. Next one's Councillor G.
Councillor G, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted some clarity from Jim regarding the local waste recycling centres. When would we be expecting to go into a non-booking system, and are we suffering from more waste being tipped around the borough due to that restriction? I understand we are doing a fantastic job through COVID, and we have to protect our staff and we have to protect the public. But what's been the outcomes and how are we going to move forward? Thank you.
Councillor Brown is next.
Thank you, Councillor G. Councillor Brown.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Councillor Brown, go ahead.
Can I just say I want to thank Jim for what he did in my area the other week when the gang came in the back streets and tipped over 50 bags of rubbish. And I thought it was an absolute disgrace for people to do this sort of thing. We all know people do chuck 2 or 3 bags, but not 50. And they came up trumps, did Jim, and I want to thank him and his staff. They were absolutely brilliant. They cleared it and it was immaculate. And I'm only telling you that because they did deserve to be praised. Thanks, Jim.
Anybody else want to speak?
Councillor Davies.
Councillor Davis.
Hiya, Jim. I hope you can all hear me. Jim, I would like to add my thanks to everybody else's thanks. It seems a bit inadequate now, what everybody else has said. I think everybody has to be thanked, all the companies that have assisted through the last 3 or 4 months. Also, all the workers, especially the refuge workers who've done an excellent job. But also, I don't think we should forget all the staff and senior staff that have rolled their sleeves up and they've had to change their jobs and get stuck in with everybody else. So I think, in actual fact, everybody needs thanking. You know, so they've done an excellent job, and hopefully within a short period of time we can get on to we can get all these streets cleaned up, which is what I actually wanted to speak to, Jim. One of the things I'm worried about more than anything else is the amount of grey contaminated bins in the top end of the Darwin East ward. We've probably got 30 odd bins in just a small amount of streets that have got contaminated bins. And I know we can all give reasons why they're contaminated. I mean, the recycling centres were closed. A lot of people are buying online, so therefore there's a lot more boxes and things being thrown out. There's no excuse really, but we do have some streets, some back streets, that you can't even walk down. I just wondered how long it's going to be before we actually get these streets cleaned up, and the large amount of bags which Councillor Brown has spoken about, which are just piled. There's piles of them, and we really need to get stuck in to actually get this on top of this. Easier said than done, you know. But I just wondered whether, you know, like, I know it's priority, I should imagine. And when we get on top of it, I'm sure, hopefully, we can get back to where we were before. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Councillor Davis. Any further questions?
Yes, Councillor Fazal next.
Councillor Fazal, go ahead.
Hi, yeah, just to Jim really, just to once again, like everyone else, thank him and his staff. At times when we've had a lot of parking in the streets around our wards, I think for them to have achieved the work that they've been doing in clearing the bins, with all them challenges, and at times when there's many people like ourselves who are even frightened at going out in the streets, and for them to persevere and give their time and effort, I think it's fantastic. There's been a lot of positive comments coming back from the members of the public in just the general change of attitude within our recycling staff, and that's being noticed. So it helps when the relationship between them and the community improves compared to the last guys who kind of they felt just didn't really bother or really care. They were just there to do their shift and get off. I think the recycling centre has been working really well. I use it, you know, in my van when I'm cleaning up the fly tipping and stuff. But we have seen a huge increase in the fly tipping. But I'm sure over time that you know we'll get back on top of that. I'm hoping this bloody the virus goes away sooner rather than later. But the concern I have now is if this keeps coming back, and if it does, if we have second and third waves, how long can we kind of just keep allowing the fly tipping that's going on within the borough, regardless of how much work we're doing? How much more can the streets go? Because in my ward, certainly we feel like we've had 3 years of good hard work, me and Jackie, totally undone. But
Thank you,
so thanks anyway. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Fazal. Any further questions?
Councillor Akhtar Hussain.
Councillor Akhtar, go ahead. Councillor Akhtar.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I want to say thank you to Jim for his doing his services. But one thing I want to ask, the collection point, the general waste day, they left some bins because people have extra, and the corners people who live next door to it, they complaining. He said, what mistake we done, because the bin man, they left the general waste I'm talking about. And please, if anything Jim can do about it, and because people give us a ring, and we, what we can do.
Thank you, Councillor Akhtar.
And also we want to say big thank you to Maggie Hall, because she's doing a fantastic job. When we ask something, she do right away.
Thank you, Councillor Akhtar. Any further questions?
Councillor Floyd.
Councillor Floyd, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Jim, again for the wonderful support from and the new team that have transferred over. Good manners, being polite. And I'd like to back up, there are some areas that are bucking the trend. If we look at Norfolk Street in Mill Hill and Azalea and Woodbine Road, we've got 2 community groups there that have turned around their back alleys on the back of seeing the work done in Liverpool and other areas. And there's quite a few of us that are getting excited of this community enthusiasm that's coming forward to turn the area around. I see that as a COVID positive, and the support from Jim and your team on the enforcement side as well, and the rapid pickup of stuff is really helping those streets gain the momentum. And I would really recommend anybody to follow those groups on Keep Blackburn Tidy, Keep Darwin Tidy, and to see how they really are transforming their community. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
For all the work you're doing.
Thank you, Councillor Floyd. Any further questions?
We have Councillor Desai and 3 other councillors indicating after that.
Councillor Desai, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just like to thank Jim and his team for the excellent service that they've been providing throughout the challenges that the challenging time that we've had. Services have been second to none. The response times have been absolutely fantastic. And I'd just like to say that the delivery of the blue bins have been seamless as well. So I'm looking forward to that service resuming very shortly. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you, Councillor Desai.
Next is Councillor Parvez Akhtar.
Councillor Akhtar, go ahead. Councillor Akhtar, Parvez. We've lost him, I think. Can we move on to the next one?
Oh, Councillor Mahfouz Hussain.
Councillor Mahfouz.
Yeah, just a comment. I mean, thanks very much to Jim and his team. I mean, obviously it's been a very, very difficult time, and obviously there's been a lot of fly tipping. It's not going to be cleared overnight, and I think everybody needs to understand that. I think the problem's been in every ward, and it's going to take time. So everybody has to bear with Jim and his team. All the great work they're doing, it will take time, and I think we all need to understand that it is a difficult time. moving into is a difficult time as well. It could be next 4 weeks, 5 weeks. It might even get worse. But I think we need to support the staff in environment and Jim and his team. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mahfouz.
And Councillor Afzal.
Councillor Afzal, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick comment in terms of what Jackie said, Councillor Floyd, sorry, said in regards to the Keep Blackburn Tidy group. Not only, I just want to highlight a couple of areas of work that they've been doing. It's not just in terms of doing litter picks. They are also advising people how to stay safe and abide by the new rules and regulations. So I've seen that in action myself, especially since we can't have large gatherings. So they've been really positive in that, and also referring those that are isolated or maybe suffering from abuse to other organisations, and I just really want to commend that holistic approach to their activities.
Thank you, Councillor Afzal. Can I bring Jim back into?
Yeah, there are no other speakers indicating.
Thank you. Councillor Jim Smith, can you respond to this?
Firstly, I'd like to pass on my thanks to the staff and say to all of you who've thanked the staff, I will definitely pass this on, because I've been so proud of them through this crisis that we're having now. Sickness rates are no worse than they've ever been, which are pretty good in our department anyway, and the staff are really pulling out the track. So I will pass on that for all of you who thanked them. I'll just answer the questions of Denise, and I think it was Roy who had real questions. Denise, I'm afraid your question about the recycling centres is how long is a piece of string? How long is it going to take for this to be over? We're not sure. What we do know is over the next, as we are speaking now, we went from 6 every half an hour to 6 every 20 minutes. It's working very, very well. We're getting lots of people who say this is working, we're happy with what's happening. I think the people of Blackburn, Darwin, understand we're in a crisis. It's not the council's fault. We're all doing our best here. I hope that's the answer I can give you. And as for Roy, it's yes, there's more fly tipping. People who contaminate. I don't believe for 1 minute the people who go to the tips and use tips fly tip. I never have. If you're willing to fill your car with rubbish, I can't believe that you would then, just because you can't go the tip, throw it in a back alley. I still think it's the same people throwing it in the back alleys. You always throw it in the back alleys. As for, and I would have a word with Paul. It's dead simple. You actually answered your own question about getting work done, a lot of you. Tori in particular. Maggie's there for councillors to get in touch with. She works like an absolute trooper and makes sure that these jobs get done. She chases them up for us. So if you have any issues, ring Maggie. Okay. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Jim. Is there any objection to this report? If not, then the report is approved.
The next report is from Councillor Talbot, Exec Member for Public Health and Wellbeing.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just in moving the report, and I know this seems to be a meeting with a lot of thanks, but I do think there is one person who does require particular mention. That is Dominic Harrison. Mohammed mentioned him briefly earlier, but Dominic has given fantastic leadership in this borough over this most difficult period that we're going through now. And you know, he's knowledgeable and professional and coherent and widely acknowledged as an expert in the field. I think we're very lucky to have Dominic giving that leadership. Obviously, everybody's working together as a team, but I think Dominic does deserve mention because we are lucky. And it was good to see Blackburn with Darwin's efforts acknowledged by the Health Secretary and the Prime Minister, I think, yesterday as well. So, you know, it's difficult times, but we're working in the right direction. With that, I'd like to move the report and take any questions, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Damien.
May I second the report?
Yes,
second that, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any questions?
Councillor Julie Slater.
Hi, good evening, everybody. I would like to second the thanks to Dominic Harrison and his team. They've worked extremely hard and put in a lot of hours. They've had to deal with a lot of stick and they've had to do conference calls, emails, conferences, the lot. And from our group especially, I would like to give a big vote of thanks to Dominic and his team.
Thank you, Julie.
Also, just on the report, looking about healthy wealth styles, I know we've got COVID going on and everything else. However, sorry, Neil's computer's making a racket there. I am concerned because I myself have actually put weight on, having been sheltering. I've done what I can in the house. Do we have an action plan to help people that have put on weight within COVID, especially as we do have the obesity problem within the borough and we're slightly under targets with that? If you do have an action plan, could you let me have it or a copy of it as soon as possible, Damien, if that's okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Any further questions?
There are no other speakers indicating, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. If there's no objections, can we approve the report?
Can I respond, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Damien, go ahead.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, thanks, Julie, for your comments. And obviously, I think we all support those comments in terms of the efforts that have been put in. I think on healthy lifestyles, yeah, you're absolutely right to raise this issue. This has been a challenging period, and I think we've gone through phases of where people were able to do some more exercise when the weather was good, but the lockdown has been extended and it has been difficult for people, particularly when the weather's not so good and people are stuck in at their homes. And we do have the obesity concern, which was raised, and we reported on that last week. So it is something we're working through. I will make sure officers get this through to you, and we'll flag this in the next week. Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Thanks for.
Thank you, Damien.
Thank you, Damien.
If there's no objections, can we approve the report?
The next report is from Councillor Desai, Exec Member for Adult Services and Prevention.
Councillor Desai, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know we've had thanks and acknowledgements flowing through the duration of this forum, but I'd just like to sort of add my personal appreciation for all the members of STAN, in particular the adult social care and prevention teams. Their selfless attitude towards providing support throughout the duration has been absolutely fantastic, and I just wanted that recorded. And with that, I'd just like to move the report and take any questions.
Is the report seconded?
Seconded.
Thank you. Any questions?
Yes.
Councillor Jackie Slater.
Yes.
Go ahead.
There is a couple of things that I would like to bring forward. One is the flu jab. Now, it's vital as a borough that we make sure that everybody, we send the message out, everybody gets a flu jab. Just this afternoon, I have spoken to Jake Berry, who has sent an email off to Matt Hancock, stressing that we must have the vaccine ready by September, as last year, if you remember, we did run out. The second thing I've learnt today that I didn't know, we must stress to all the people in the borough. I was told when I had a pneumonia jab that it was a once-off. I find out today that is not the case. The pneumonia jab only lasts so long and you need to have a booster. Now, as a borough, these Blackburn with Darwen needs to press this, needs to be telling people they must make sure it's done. And we must tell people about the pneumonia, because even I didn't know that. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. Any further questions?
Councillor Mahfouz Hussain.
Councillor Mahfouz Hussain, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I mean, same again, like environmental sensors, we need to recognize social services as well. And in a very difficult time, they gone out of the way, worked very hard, supporting the care homes, supporting the dom care, supporting the other learning disability teams, working with other providers, and they've done an absolutely brilliant job, guiding on safeguardings, guiding them on the infection control. And I think that needs to be acknowledged in a very difficult time. On that basis, I'd like to say thank you to Mustafa and his team, and please thank us from behalf of all the councillors for excellent work they provided during very difficult time, and I'm sure they will be doing same for next few weeks. Thank you.
Thank you, Mahfouz Hussain. Any further questions?
Councillor Brown.
Councillor Brown, go ahead. Councillor Brown. I think we've lost Councillor Brown.
Councillor Brown, can you unmute to ask your question? No.
Anybody else?
I think Councillor Brown might be available now.
Councillor Brown, go ahead.
No, he's gone back.
First of all, can I say to Jackie Slater, I do not believe in having a flu jab. I have never, ever had a flu jab. And there's people at my age who I know who've never had a flu jab. And it's up to the individuals. I will not recommend anybody who do not want to have it done and have it forced down onto them. I think it's wrong. And get your priorities right. Let everybody who has an individual can make their own mind up. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Brown.
There are no other speakers indicating, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Desai, you would have come back and
thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mahfouz, for your vote of thanks. I will ensure that gets passed on to the teams, and we'll pass it on from yourself and the rest of the councillors as well. Regarding the flu jab that Jackie and Councillor Brown have mentioned, I think it's a public health issue, this one. So I think Damien would have been better placed to answer that question. But in terms of sort of the recommendation for having a flu jab, I think there is a definite rationale for it. So if you get the opportunity and your practitioners have advised, then I think it's imperative that you do get that jab. But I think I'll let Damien respond to you by way of email, if that's okay.
I'm happy to respond now if Mr. Mayor wants.
Yeah, Damien, if you want to respond.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, I will respond further with an email, but at the end of the day, the flu vaccine has saved lives across the whole country, and we would want to encourage people who are in a vulnerable position to have the flu jab. We've got good rates of flu vaccination in this borough, and we've got, I think, in East Lancashire amongst the best rates of staff vaccination in the NHS. So, where people have got asthma conditions, the elderly, and young children, we want to encourage that. We want to save lives, so I would encourage that. It's not the law, it's not compulsory. If people have got their own views about flu in vaccination, then they're entitled to those, but I would certainly want to encourage that. Happy to give further on email. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Damien. Any further questions?
No.
If there's no objections, can we approve the report, please?
The next report, Mr. Mayor, is from Councillor Mahmood, the Executive Member for Digital and Customer Services.
Councillor Mahmood.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I absolutely echo all the thanks that have been given by all members tonight for every council worker and officer. And I especially want to recognise some members of my portfolio, although they might not be frontline. I think they've done some exemplary work to enable us to actually continue to discharge our duties in a digital way and allowing our residents to interact with the council and carry on receiving the services. I just want to highlight a couple of things that they have actually done, and we're extremely proud of their achievements. Just before COVID, we only had a couple of hundred people at any one time working online and working from home. In the height of the COVID situation, in a very quick timeline, we had up to 1,500 people, and that's down to the hard work of the digital and the IT teams, also setting up the councillors for their digital enablement to allow us to carry on having these meetings and the forums to carry on functioning as a council. The digital customer portal has been quite pivotal in helping Blackburn Darwen Borough Council in many aspects. It could have been the health hub, administering of the grant applications for the business relief grants and the discretionary grants, and also working with the household waste recycling centre and some of the members from Jim's portfolio in putting that booking system up relatively quickly in a short space of time, you know, and there's been a lot of hard work gone into that, and they continue to work to improve some of the digital platforms so our residents get a better experience, and we carry on doing that. Lastly, and you know, by no means the least, the customer services teams have been working quite hard to put in place plans to get our front of office up and running. And since last week, we've opened up the town hall at the front end. And again, I'm glad to report that, you know, it's functioning relatively effectively with, you know, sort of small numbers in footfall, and we want to try and keep it as much as possible in that. So with that, I'd like to move that report, Mr. Mayor, and take any questions.
Is that report seconded?
Yes, seconded, Mr. Mayor, and echo Councillor Mahmood's words.
Thank you. Any questions or comments?
Councillor Julie Slater.
Councillor Julie Slater, go ahead.
Hi. Sorry. I would just like to thank the IT support desk who help us councillors, especially with all the help that they've given me, helping train my family on Teams. But especially because I've been sheltering, I've had a couple of our staff come to the house with a mask and gloves on to help me, especially when I've had my fall with my new phone, and the support that they've given me and the way they've treated me has been exceptional, and I cannot thank them enough because it's been hard times. So I'd just like to pass on my thanks to two of the young men that are in the team. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Any further questions?
Yes, the leader, Councillor Khan, has indicated.
Councillor Khan, go ahead. Councillor Khan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I fully echo what Cassett said about the department, and I sincere thanks to Paul Fleming and his team. And I think I attended the PCC meeting, and I think a number of local authority, they were struggling to get into the system, and they were blaming us, but I think it has nothing to do with us, it's their system. And I think we managed to do that job so quickly to set up the system, and all the councillors, I think they are very familiar with the system now, and they are getting on with the job. And I think we have a Skype, we have a Zoom, we have Microsoft, and I think that's great. Same thing on the issue of registrar, Mr. Mayor, I'm really pleased, and I really like to thank them. I think under the difficult circumstances in the beginning of the COVID, I was really concerned. I think we set up the burial committee, which was chaired by Saeed Usman. I think he done a wonderful job. And I think we were concerned about the death certificate. And I am so pleased that somebody died in hospital about 10 o'clock in the morning. We managed to get everything clear, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. That is unbelievable, because I think the Paul Registrar Office, Saeed Usman, and the other people in the hospital, they set up some kind of system. They were working more coordination. I think the body was released very quickly, and people who are really mourning their loved one, they managed to get the funeral done in a time. So my sincere thanks to all the registrar and Saeed Usman and all the team in the department, and especially the our digital customer services. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Khan. Any further questions?
Councillor Davies.
Councillor Davis, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to bring a couple of problems I think that we must keep a close eye on. I think the people working from home, I think really it's the way to go. And meetings such as these, again, that's the way to go. I think it's, you know, like it's the only way forward. It'll save a fortune, I suppose, on office spaces and everything else that goes with it. I would like to add my thanks to the IT departments because of the hard work they've done. I don't think people realise how hard work, how much hard work they are actually putting into place. One of the things I'd like to bring up that I think we should actually be considering is that when people are in the workplace, ergonomics are looked at to make sure that people are comfortable and have a good working position and everything. When people are working from home, they don't have this, you know, and they could be making do with a chair that's not suitable or a desk that's too high, too low. So I think that needs to be kept a close eye on. And if you're a single person as well, I think depression has got to be considered also. And I don't know how, it's all right me saying this, but I don't know how you're going to look after these people. But if people are working from home and it is long term, I think it's something we really need to look at. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Councillor Davis.
Councillor Desai is next.
Councillor Desai, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. No, I'd just like to say that the IT, the digital team have been absolutely fantastic, and the choice of platforms that we've got now to, convene, meetings, etc. Absolutely incredible. Because I mean, I was at the weekend. I was up in the hills, and I joined the meeting from Clough Pike. So it's absolutely fantastic that you can sort of join things anywhere you are, which makes it a lot easier for people like me who are sort of travelling for my normal work, so it gives a greater opportunity for attendances as well.
Thank you, Councillor Desai.
Councillor Mahfouz Hussain.
Councillor Mahfouz Hussain, go ahead.
Yeah, same echoing on the funerals, death certificates and things like that. I mean, especially it's a very difficult time when people lost their loved ones. The service they provided were absolutely brilliant, and I hope we continue to do that. I'd like to say thank you on that side. It's a service which is a need in the community, especially in a difficult time, and they are doing a fantastic job. Thank you for delivering an excellent service. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mahfouz.
Councillor Bateson.
Councillor Bateson, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't mean this to be in a negative way, but I think one of the things it's identified are those without IT in our community, and we certainly noticed that in schools and other areas, are being left behind. And I think we have to remember that during this time when we've relied so much on IT skills, we've left a lot of people behind, and some of those people who've been isolated really did need a different sort of communication. And without the help hub for some of those, they needed somebody to speak to. And I think while IT is great and has its place, we shouldn't forget all those who don't have it and the problems it causes for them.
Thank you, Maureen.
There are no other speakers indicating, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Mahmood, do you want to respond?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In terms of just going to take the questions, and I absolutely take back all the thanks that everybody's given. So Julie Slater, I mean, in terms of the IT support, I think the guys have done a fantastic job, and they were well aware of everybody who's vulnerable or in the shielding category, and they did absolutely everything possible to get out there. And I'm glad you've got everything that you needed, and they continue to help you. In terms of Mohammed and the registrars, absolutely agree. In terms of some of the concerns from elected members when we had the height of COVID, and the registrars again delivered a fantastic service, and they continue to do that. They've got a good system in place, and they are still continuing to offer that online registration service, and as well as moving into sort of the weddings within the government guidelines that they're able to do, offering those services. So absolutely agree with your comments there. Roy, yeah, working from home, I think, nationally, it's become one of the things that everybody in every department and every company will probably be looking at in how to maximize and become more efficient. And it could well be something that, we as a council explore, especially, in testing times where we've got financial challenges that you're all well aware of. So absolutely, we will continue to do that. In terms of the health and safety assessments, again, I will pick that up with Paul and see, if there is something that we can do, maybe through our department and maybe even the democratic services. And your question around depression, I absolutely get it. And again, I think that's something that's for sort of the health teams, and I'm sure that there will be people who from Damien's team who can signpost you towards some of the help available for those areas. Mustafa and Maf, yeah, absolutely. Your thanks will be taken back to the whole team. and I'm sure they'll be echoed right across the council, as all councillors are doing that tonight. And in terms of Maureen, yeah, absolutely. I think we are well aware of the 10% who are not IT enabled, and we are working with various departments and the third sector to look at ways of addressing some of these challenges and issues, and we'll carry on doing that. And we're hoping as we become a more digitally enabled borough, we'll bring those people along with us in that journey. So that is well noted as part of our strategy and plan, and we'll carry on focusing on that. With that, I've got nothing else to add, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Mahmood. If there's no objections, the report is carried.
Mr. Mayor, the next report is from Councillor McGurk, the Executive Member for Finance and Governance.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move the report, and in doing so, like every other portfolio, I just want to say a huge thanks to both the finance team and similar to the IT teams. These are teams that are working behind the scenes, that have paid the grants in the various forms that they've come in. They've worked day and night, weekends, to ensure that everything that needed to be done has been done. So my huge thank you to Louise Mattison and her teams, and also to David Fairclough and his teams, the HR teams and the governance teams, who are ensuring that all the right processes are followed, that all of our staff, as previously mentioned, have the right DSEs and equipment to be able to work from home. And with that, I move the reports. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that report seconded?
Second that.
Any questions on this report?
Councillor Davis.
Councillor Davis, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to ask questions on a couple of different things. I'm hoping, to be quite honest, that I can put this to Vicky and to Phil at the same time, which is 11.6 and 11.7. I hope that's acceptable. And what the questions are, really, it's worrying that the Labour Council has such a bad track record for controlling costs of capital projects. We have three examples of this. Dorman Market, budget 1.5 million, and at the last week's executive board, it was found out that it had been overspent, not by a few thousand, but by £500,000. Blackburn Bus Station, that was budgeted for 4.7 million and was overspent by 3.7 million. We were assured by Councillor Raleigh that when we had to change of contractors mid-project, there would be no extra money. Also, then there was the over £500,000 overspend on Newfield, and here it becomes a bit farcical, to be quite honest, because the council had forgotten to cost the demolition of the old building. Did they think we were going to build it on top of the old one? In total, that's almost £5 million on projects costing originally 12 million. What assurance can you give us, Vicky and Phil, that the council has got to grip with managing capital projects, and that we do have scrutiny in place to actually keep it in line? Thanks very much.
Thank you, Councillor Davis. Any further questions?
Councillor G.
Councillor G, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to talk about the business rate grant, and we were just talking about our digital age and getting the message, and we all know at weekends that somebody took it upon themselves to duplicate some of our messaging into their own words. But what I'm referring to is the government grant system. Now, the government grant system was announced that it would be an automatic payment. Now, Blackburn with Darwen took a different route, and actually I commend the different route because they scrutinised that payment and ensured that it was paid to those who deserve to receive it. However, could I urge the executive member to, if we are going to do something that is different or differs from what the government announced, could we use our social media and all our platforms to get that message out nice and strong and clear, so as we don't put stress and worry onto our small businesses and out in the borough, so as it's supportive rather than becomes a negative at the beginning. But I do again commend all the work that was done by the team to ensure that these businesses got the grants that they sorely needed. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor G. Any further questions?
There are no other councillors indicating they wish to speak.
Vicky, do you want to come back and respond, please?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. To Councillor Davis, this was mentioned at the executive board. I will allow Councillor Phil Riley to also respond, but in particular, my comments on this are all capital expenditure, whilst it's budgeted for, it also has a level of changing variances with regards to costs. Now, with regards to the school, you mentioned that the costs were omitted. They were actually budgeted for, but unfortunately the demolition cost went into a different budget code, and that code wasn't then attributed to the capital spend. So it was always accounted for, it was always attributed, it just wasn't put into the right budget code, just to clear that up. With regards to Councillor G, I'm not 100% sure which grant you're talking about, because there was a number of grants, but certainly I'm confident that we took a prudent approach. And again, I'm not 100% sure which communications you're talking about, but certainly the government had given us some instruction and then further instruction later on, which actually confirmed our approach with regards to what we should be checking in order to ensure that the money went to the right businesses. But the guidance was very, very clear for the grants, business rates grants that went out on the variable rates, and obviously there was a small pot for the discretionary fund, which again I'm confident that the teams did the right thing. But I'll take up your point, I'll do some investigation just so I can get to the bottom of whatever the confusion was with regards to communications. Thank you.
Thank you, Vicky. Councillor Riley, do you want to say something?
Yes, please.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Again, these came up at the executive board of last week, but just to repeat a couple of things. Clearly, we were presented with a sizable difficulty when the contractor who was delivering the Blackburn bus station went into administration. I think, as I said last week, we were presented with three choices really. One was to leave it standing half finished, one was to demolish it, and one was to effectively do what we did, which was to engage with another contractor, Eric Wright, to complete it. It turned out that quite a lot of the work that had been done previously was not up to the standard that one would have expected, so there was rather more remedial work than we had anticipated. The Darwin market, most of the additional expense really was other pieces of work that we voluntarily chose to do. One of them, which I know that both Councillor Davis and Councillor Brown were very concerned about, was the replacement of the railings around the railway road perimeter. We ended up having to, or not so much having to do, we ended up replacing those, which was a cost that we hadn't seen coming. We also put in a sort of a terracotta entrance to the market hall, which again was, so these were additional pieces of work. I had, Mr. Mayor, anticipated this question, so I had gone to the trouble of discovering one or two projects which have come in on budget, and so the recent growth deal, North Blackburn, Brownhill Roundabout, Little Harwood traffic lights, came in on budget. The Furthergate growth development, which was an enormous project with a huge amount of difficulties from unknown statutory services that's completely transformed that entrance into Blackburn, came in on budget. The business fit out of Cathedral Square came in on budget, and of course the build of Shorey Bank came in on budget. So I wouldn't want anyone to go away thinking that this isn't something that this council can deliver. We've been challenged with a couple of pretty difficult sets of circumstances, and those account for those overspends. In the main, we bring things in on budget. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Riley. If there's no objections, this report is carried.
Thank you. The next report is from Councillor Riley, the Executive Member for Growth and Development.
I will second this report.
Okay, so I will move the report and answer any questions, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Riley. Is the report seconded?
I will second that report, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Rowe.
Thank you, Councillor Orts. Any questions?
Councillor Brown has indicated.
Councillor Brown, go ahead.
I will when I find it. Right. Can you hear me?
Yes, Councillor Brown.
Can I then ask Phil, and I'm not being critical of him in any shape, size or form, but when you get contractors in to do work for the borough, do you not investigate them to find out whether they are viable and they can carry out the work completed, instead of, like you have mentioned about the bus station, have to go into liquidation? I mean, I would have thought you would have known about that when you was getting your tenders together to find out your company. And it's no criticism to you at all, Phil. It's just something that I will think we should be looking at. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Any further questions?
Councillor G.
Councillor G, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to pick up 2 points in the report. One regarding the flooding, which was severe on the 16th of June, and I want to thank the officer that came out to help on our ward. But that was due to manholes, 2 drains being blocked, and that's an ongoing issue within the borough, which, when we get heavy rain, causes serious problems for our residents. So that's something that we need to look at, making sure that we maintain. But the other comment that I'd like to make on the report, that I welcome the development towards the link road down onto Milking Lane, which has been long awaited for, because the residents at the top of Milking Lane area are quite at risk when, for emergency services, etc., because there's one in, one out, and that link road is crucial to the health, well-being and safety of our public. So thank you very much for moving that into.
Thank you, Councillor G. Any further questions?
There are no other indications, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Riley, do you want to sum up?
Yeah, I mean, in answer to Councillor Brown, I mean, the answer is, of course we do. In this particular instance, the company that we used was Thomas Barnes, had successfully built bus stations in a number of towns in the north of England, and they had a very good record for doing it. Unfortunately, there were significant changes in the ownership of, or the leadership of that company, and the business ceased to be run in a way that we had anticipated it being run, and clearly the way that it used to be run, and that was the issue that we were left with. In the context of Councillor G, yeah, the Milking Lane site, I think, hopefully, I mean, we had got some really good news of businesses that were going to move on to there pre-COVID. Obviously, we're now trying to work with those businesses to see whether they still want to do the expansion and in some cases move into Blackburn, which they had got planned. So, with any luck at all, that site will start to become alive again. And the flooding, after every flooding incident, we do attempt to understand whether there are underlying schemes. We perpetually making changes. I mean, and a number of you will remember that there was a very significant flood in the centre of Darwin a number of years ago, and on the back of that, with money from the Environment Department, a series of changes were made so that in the last couple of heavy rainstorms, there hasn't been any significant flooding on the main road into Darwin. So we do that. We have got a particular issue on a small block in the Mayor's own ward on Whalley New Road, and this is a very significant challenge really that's to do with the layout of the land. Really, it's I suspect it's been flooding for about 200 years off and on, but it's something that we're putting some real serious thought into, because those residents do deserve they deserve not to have their houses flooded on the regular basis, which is what happens. With that answer, Mr. Mayor, I will move on.
Thank you, Councillor Riley. If there are no objections, this report is carried.
The next report, Mr. Mayor, is from Councillor Gunn, the Executive Member for Children's, Young People and Education.
Councillor Gunn, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before moving my report, I'd just like to join in with all the votes of thanks this evening to a very special person. I'd like to thank my predecessor, Councillor Maureen Bateson. I'll take this opportunity because I was going to wait till we were in the chamber, but that might be some time, but I'd like to do it here. Maureen has been the Executive Member for Children's Services for, I think, all but 2 of her 22 years as an Executive Member. She's passionate, caring, straight talking, and championing the needs and views of our children and young people, of their families, of their carers. And I just want to say publicly thank you to Maureen for that. She's been a mentor to me for the last 6 years. She's a fantastic role model, but not just to me, to probably all the women in this meeting and many more outside of it too. At the Executive Board, the youth MPs asked me to pass on their thanks from the Youth Forum, as have the care leavers, as have many of our young people and children. Maureen is incredibly highly thought of and she would be missed, but luckily she's not going anywhere. I'm delighted that she's stayed on to be an assistant executive member. I'm so pleased to have her support, to have her expertise and experience and all that brings, and to continue working with Pat and Abdul too. So I'm really looking forward to the challenge of this role. I also need to express my thanks to every single member of the teams that work in children's services, from Jane Ivory right through to every single member of staff that I've come in contact with recently. Their work and commitment is unprecedented. Their attitude towards steering our young people and children through this uncertainty of COVID has been outstanding, and I'd just like to commend them for that. And I'd also like to acknowledge our young people and our children. This must be such a challenging time. They've made such sacrifices. Some of them have started their education. Some of them are ending their education. Lots of them are going through transition in their education, and they're all handling this. They're seeing the impacts of COVID on their family. They're sacrificing being able to say goodbye to their friends and teachers. They're sacrificing celebrating the end of their education or the start of their education. They might even be sacrificing saying goodbye to loved ones. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. The Youth Forum asked me at the Executive Board how we're going to look after their mental health and well-being, and I gave them a very detailed response, and I'm reiterating here that we will do everything in our power to ensure that as we come out of lockdown, that those children and young people are fully supported to the best of our ability. And with that, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move my report and take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Is the report seconded?
Seconded.
Any questions?
Councillor McGurk.
Councillor McGurk, go ahead.
Thank you. Just wanted to echo Councillor Gunn's comments on Councillor Maureen Bateson. She has some pretty big boots to fill, but I've no doubt that Julie will fill them. But also, I just wanted to say thank you, not just on as behalf of a councillor for children's and education, but as a mum. I've got children in sixth form and I've got children who are in reception class. So my daughter Sophie's at Lower Darwin, and she went back to school, and the school's just been absolutely amazing. She's felt safe, she's felt happy, and if my daughter coming home from school is anything to go by, then you know the return to school for the number of children that have returned has just been phenomenal. So thank you so much to all the department. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McGurk. Any further questions?
Councillor Mahfouz Hussain.
Councillor Mahfouz Hussain, go ahead.
Just a point on especially our schools, and I mean obviously as everybody knows since March, I mean all the kids been working from school. They've done a wonderful job, and we cannot forget the parents, what they've been doing and how they've been working with their children and with the schools. So special thanks to all the schools, all the teachers, and all the parents from all councillors, and thanks for their support, what they've given us through a very difficult time. Thank you.
Councillor Mahfouz. Anybody else indicated?
There are no other indications, Mr. Mayor.
In that case,
Councillor Bateson has just indicated she would like to speak.
Councillor Bateson, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to say to Julie, thank you for those nice comments, and to pass my thanks back to the youth MPs. But all the years that I've been in children's services, it's been an honour and a pleasure. But I've not really done the work. It's been the fantastic staff that have worked over the years with me. It's been our foster carers, our staff in schools, our senior management. We've had some real support from our chief executives, both past and present. And I think, you know, sometimes it's a real challenge to put children's services up there, because you can't see when you change a child's life. You can see a building going up, and you can see a new road, or you can see something opening in a service. But to change a child's life and turn it round is, for me, the biggest thing that we can do for any child in this authority. And knowing the children and young people in this authority, I think we've got a great future. So thank you to everybody and all the members who've helped me over the years. And you can be sure, Mr. Mayor, I've not gone away.
Thank you. Councillor Bateson.
Councillor G has indicated.
G, go ahead.
I just want to say a quick word. When I first came to council, I was actually quite scared of Maureen, but actually what I did develop over the years was a great respect for her willingness to listen to every young person and wanting to make a difference. And I know that she's just spoken and commended the officers, but she should take great pride in all the officers that she's held to account, and she's held them to account for the right reasons. So I want to say thank you.
Thank you, Councillor G.
There are no other speakers indicated, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. If there's no objections, this report is carried.
Councillor Gunn may wish to respond.
Sorry, Julie, do you want to respond?
Yes, please, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Yes, absolutely. Vicky McGurk, thank you for your comments. They are indeed big shoes. She looks little, but she's got very big feet. She must have for those shoes that I've got to fill, but I'm relishing that. Thank you for your comments too about the schools. As you'll know, we worked, our education team worked with schools hand in hand from the first day that schools were asked to close to all except the vulnerable children and those children of key workers. We were planning from day one the reopening, the re-extension of the widening extension of schools, and to witness that work has been awe-inspiring. Actually, with the connections that have been made, the joint working, the collaborative working has been outstanding. So I'm really pleased that it's having a positive impact and effect, and making the return to school less daunting and more successful than it might have been otherwise. So thank you for those comments. Mahfouz, you're absolutely right. Parents have been doing an amazing job. Parents and carers homeschooling, perhaps whilst they're still looking after other members of their family or trying to hold down their jobs working from home. They're absolutely amazing, and they have my full respect. Maureen, you're right. The staff they're second to none. We are lucky to have every single one of them. I know they feel valued, and I hope they continue to feel valued now, particularly through as they're steering us through COVID. The foster carers, what would we do without them? They're absolutely amazing, and they do challenge us, and they're quite right to do that. The outcomes are what matter. You're absolutely right. We can't see outcomes as instantly as we can if we're building a bus station. Sorry, Phil, but we do know that we can measure the impact, and we can see the impact when lots of our care leavers keep in touch with us and let us know how they're doing, and that's really important, because why else do it? Denise, thank you again. You're right, Maureen can be intimidating, and quite rightly so. She's a strong woman, and she's got strong standards, very high standards that need to be followed, and she does challenge when challenge is required, and that'll be, you know, something I'll benefit from as well. So I'm looking forward to that. So thank you very much for your comments.
Thank you, Julie. If there's no objections, the report is carried.
Mr. Mayor, I can advise you that no questions have been received from members under Procedure Rule 11. There are no business to be considered under Part 2. However, the leader would like to speak.
Yes, Councillor Khan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before I thank you for presiding this meeting, may I remind all the colleagues, we know the rising tide of COVID-19 here in Blackburn. We are doing everything we can to get grip on this virus, and we need everyone in Blackburn with Darwin to pull together to help each other and help us. So please, we as elected member, we as leading people, we need to help the community, and we need to stick to the rule and protect ourselves and our family. And I think this is the message we have to give to the community. Make sure wherever you are going, just tell them to keep the distance, use the mask if you are in public places, wash your hand, and don't try to get into big gathering. So I think this is something we need to do it. Mr. Mayor, I have some telephone call yesterday which was secret, but I think somebody leaked to my friend Bill Jacob, and he rang me this afternoon that that's true. And I have to say to my colleague that I got a telephone call from Prime Minister Boris Johnson yesterday, 4:30. He tried to ring me 11:30, but I was in a meeting, and I think it probably will be something in the press. And I said, better tell my colleagues that Prime Minister did ring me yesterday about expressing the concern of rising tide in COVID-19 in Blackburn, and he was saying how you are doing, how the community is doing, what is your planning, how you are engaging with the community, are you planning to close down the Blackburn? And I told him that we have no intention whatsoever closing the Blackburn as a whole, and we will look at the different area. If there is any problem, we'll probably look at it, as I said in my question to answer. So, Mr. Mayor, I think it was nice of him ringing me and asking me that how you are coping and how you are going to plan yourself to control this virus, and I thanks him for that. But I said to him, I think he said, do you need anything from my officer of HUD? Are you getting all the information? I said, yes, we are getting all the information about the number of people tested and positive and negative, but we need more money. And he smiled and laughed, and he says, okay, Councillor Khan, goodbye. So thank you, Mr. Mayor, for presiding this meeting. I think it was a very constructive meeting. I've never seen so many thanks to Jim Smith. This is the first time, I think, in the council chamber, probably people feeling difference. I think today everybody praising him, which I think he deserved the praise. A lot of other people praise the officers and staff and voluntary sector and faith sector, etc., which is right to do it. So thank you, Mr. Mayor, once again for presiding this virtually meeting. It's a difference, but I have to say good night to everybody. Have a nice journey back home where you are.
Thank you, Councillor Khan. You summed it up all well. And I also wish to thank everybody for contributing in this very constructive meeting. Stay safe and be happy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That concludes the meeting of this council forum, with my apologies for the technical difficulties earlier on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Good. Thank you.